It was the crunch of my tires over shattered ceramic gnomes that first tipped me off something was wrong. For a brief, ridiculous moment, I thought maybe some avant-garde neighborhood art project had gone rogue, or that it was some weird HOA-themed prank. But then I caught sight of the orange cones, the freshly planted shrubs, and the large laminated sign zip-tied to a chain stretched across my driveway. Access temporarily denied pending HOA visual compliance review, it read. I blinked, thinking I must have pulled into the wrong cul-de-sac by mistake. But not here was my familiar porch, my old retriever Max barking behind the living room window, and my mailbox now inexplicably surrounded by ornamental hedges that hadn't been there the day before. I stepped out of the car carefully, trying not to trip over the ceramic frog family that used to sit proudly in my neighbor's garden but now lay smashed and half-buried beneath a new flower bed. That's when she stepped into view. Marla Stanton, the HOA president. Clipboard in hand, oversized sunglasses perched on her nose even though the sun had dipped below the hills. Her smug, self-satisfied grin stretched across her face like she'd just won the lottery. She tapped the sign with her pen, looking at me like she was revealing a winning hand. Sorry, Mason, she purred, her voice dripping with faux sympathy. But this isn't your street. It's our neighborhood. And with that, she turned on her heel and strutted away like the final scene of a courtroom drama. I stood frozen in my own driveway, blocked from my own home, surrounded by potted plants I never ordered, and something inside me clicked. Not rage. Not despair. Focus. This wouldn't end in a shouting match. No, this was going to end with paperwork, blueprints, and a level of retaliation Marla would never see coming. The next morning, after the coffee had cooled and my head had cleared, I called the HOA office seeking clarification. I assumed this had to be some kind of mistake. Surely there was a rational explanation. But after 3 transfers and a hang-up, followed by a generic email response saying all visual complaints must go through the HOA Aesthetic Review Board, my optimism faded. I showed up at the next board meeting, hopeful someone on the committee would see reason. Instead, I was ambushed by a slideshow presentation of my home, featuring photos clearly snapped through my windows, showcasing my driveway's non-conforming shape and aesthetic dissonance, whatever the hell that meant. I tried to speak, but Marla slammed her gavel down hard enough to rattle the water glasses. Your time is up, she announced. When I got back home, I found a warning notice taped to my mailbox. My dog's barking, it claimed, was potentially disturbing community harmony. The next day, 3 more potted trees appeared in my driveway along with a note, compliance makes the community beautiful. It was never about rules. It was always about control. As an architect, I designed my custom home myself, including the slate concrete driveway bordered with earth-toned bricks, fully compliant when it was poured 5 years ago. The HOA had signed off on it. But after I helped a neighbor win her appeal to keep her solar panels up, Marla had set her sights on me. The petty citations piled up. Mailbox too modern. Trash bins visible for 17 minutes past pickup. I once got a notice citing excessive wind chime activity. But blocking my driveway? That was the line she shouldn't have crossed. I started digging. At first figuratively, then literally. I pulled the property deeds, zoning maps, and the HOA formation documents. Buried in the original plat was an interesting detail: the roads inside the subdivision were owned collectively except for the main entrance road. That one was leased via an easement from a private party. An easement that, according to the fine print, had quietly expired 8 months earlier. Easement subject to renewal upon agreement of the original developer or successor in interest, the note read. I nearly spilled my coffee. Enter Diego Morales, my old college buddy turned real estate investor. This is the same guy who once bought an entire strip mall because a sandwich shop served him stale bread. When I told him about the expired easement, he grinned like a kid on Christmas morning. Say no more, he said. You want checkmate, Mason? You got it. While Diego traced the ownership trail, I kept poking the bear. I had my contractor try to remove the unauthorized potted trees from my driveway. Within an hour, an HOA enforcer, yes, that's what they call themselves, showed up, threatening fines for unauthorized landscaping disturbance. Show me where in the bylaws it says the HOA can plant things on my private property. I challenged him. Karen's orders, he muttered, then walked away. A few days later, Diego called back. The entrance road had been split into 3 parcels. Two were owned by a dormant LLC, the third had been offloaded by a bank after the last foreclosure wave. Within a week, Diego secured the first two parcels. The third took a little creative negotiation, but eventually the deed was signed, sealed, and delivered. The access road now legally belonged to me. And now the real fun began. Diego and I moved quickly, hiring a top-tier security installation firm. By the book, permits filed, inspections cleared, a sleek entry gate planned with keypad access, license plate recognition, and facial ID options. We branded the management firm Granite Ridge Management, filed the paperwork, and secured our footing. At dawn, the convoy of delivery trucks rolled into the neighborhood, offloading metal beams, concrete mixers, and black fencing taller than a grown man. Curious neighbors peered through their blinds as workers dug trenches and installed the posts. By noon, a brown-wrapped sign stood at the entrance. When we finally peeled back the wrapping, the sign read, "Private access. Granite Ridge Property Management. Permit required for entry. Violators will be towed and prosecuted. Monthly vehicle permit fee, $125. Resident discounts available." The neighborhood exploded. Emails flooded my inbox. Some polite, others panicked, and a few absolutely unhinged. Marla herself came screeching up in her pastel blue Lexus, slamming on the brakes just inches from the new barricade. She bolted from the car, waving the HOA handbook like it was the Magna Carta. "You can't do this," she shrieked. "You can't just build a gate and block people in." I sipped my coffee and nodded toward the sign. "Actually, Marla, I can. You told me it wasn't my street. Now it's not yours either." Within 24 hours, the permit portal processed over 70 applications. Some residents were furious. Others quietly thanked me. The local paper picked up the story. The headline read, "Architect buys neighborhood road. HOA power play backfires." I waived the permit fees for elderly residents, those with medical needs, and school transportation. This wasn't about money. It was about making a point. The following weeks brought more drama than a reality show. The HOA scrambled, residents turned on Marla, and one by one, her enforcers quit the board. The final straw came when an independent audit exposed thousands of dollars of HOA funds funneled into consulting fees paid to Marla's cousin's landscaping company. In a special meeting at the local library, the vote was unanimous. Marla was removed from office. Her allies followed. The new board dissolved every citation she had issued in the past 6 months. They offered me the HOA presidency. I declined. I didn't need a title. I had my driveway back and my peace of mind. The gate stayed, but the fees were permanently waived. Residents received RFID tags. Emergency services had open access. The neighborhood finally relaxed. Marla, stripped of power, kept to herself. Occasionally, we'd lock eyes when I walked Max past her porch. She'd nod. I'd nod back. No words needed. Balance restored. The battle won not with shouting, but with strategy. Not with anger, but with resilience. Because no one truly owns a community, but anyone can stand up and protect it when enough is enough.